There's something that creative people deal with that's not talked about enough. And that is that a lot of them are constantly battling with their feelings of self-worth and need for acceptance on some level or another. And for some, this is very closely tied to their creative process. It can be a motivator, but it can also lead them into darkness. My guest on this episode is Darius Wallace, who amongst his many other credits has appeared on TED Talks where he spoke about how he was forced to reinvent himself after his battle with alcoholism and ultimately homelessness. I got a chance to catch up with Darius just as he was fleeing the airport, trying to circumnavigate the snowstorms happening on the East Coast at the time of this interview. And I learned what it is that keeps him motivated and inspired amidst all the change and upheaval that we're all facing right now. So let's get into it. Okay, Darius, I am so excited to talk to you for a number of reasons. I watched your TED Talk. I found it really inspiring. I really love the theme about reinventing yourself. I think that resonates with a lot of people, especially as a result of what has happened to the events industry and how it's impacted venues and artists. And a lot of them have found that they needed to find a new business model or a new way of staying engaged with their audiences. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But first, I think my real question is this. I mean, I looked at your IMDb page. I looked at all your credits. You're an actor, you're a director. You've made your own film, which is on Amazon. You're a writer, public speaking coach. You've been a guest speaker on TED Talks, as I mentioned, and you have involvement with a number of performing arts groups. How do you get time for all this?
Well, I have no idea. I have no idea how to answer that. People say I've lived, and I think I have lived 9 lives. I'm about ready to live about 9 more lives at this stage of my life. I think that I'm always constantly working and constantly creating. And I think that I am just in the midst of doing what I love to do. I love story. I'm a storyteller, to sum everything up. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy performing for people. I think the main thing is I enjoy inspiring people. And I think that a lot of my life goes toward where I'm inspired. But it didn't always used to be that way. It didn't always used to be that way. But so to answer your question, I have no idea. But I think it's because I love to do it. I'm constantly working. So.
Right. So, okay, let's talk about that. You're saying it didn't always used to be that way. I'm now, when you say that, I'm remembering your TED Talk and the journey that you have gone through, which is a pretty amazing story. Do you want to just touch on that and tell us how you arrived at where you are today?
Very, very good question. Well, let me just running through the course of my life real quick in about 2 minutes. I was born in Flint, Michigan. I'm 5'11", 185 pounds, and I've been this way since I was 13. I have hair on my face. I normally don't. I play Frederick Douglass, and I'm having to do a short film on him, so I have hair on my face, but normally I don't. But when I was 13, I had sideburns down to here. I had the voice that I have. I practiced martial art. I was a kickboxer fighting adults at 13 years old.
Wow.
And so I was a candidate for being in gang life, and I was for a little bit. Got out of it through the arts. But I think because I looked older than what I was always misunderstood. I was an introvert. I struggled with sadness and depression very, very strongly. Is anybody out there that's dealing with or know someone that has dealt with a person that's constantly almost obsessed with the idea of suicide? That's what I was for a lot of my young teenage life through my young adult life. And so theater was my way out, but it wasn't enough to keep me from battling depression, battling sadness. And so skipping ahead to being a professional actor, when I was living in Los Angeles, actually, my mother died of breast cancer. And it was that tip that really sent me over the edge. And I completely lost. A lot of promise was happening for me in LA. And when my mother passed, I was so, messed up about it that my whole world just went upside down, I found myself not with myself anymore. I couldn't function. I was fortunate to have get an opportunity to be a part of a theater company in New York. I was, battling alcoholism. I dabbled in drugs some, which I did there in New York, and I found myself homeless. If you've seen the guys walking down the street with the cart, that was me. And when I
Wow.
look back on it, it's just blows my mind that I lived that way for a while. But that was me, picking up cans to get cash, and learning how to live without any place to live. And but what was beautiful though is my father was inspired by several men, uh, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, and Tony Robbins, and Napoleon Hill. I don't know if you've heard any of these names.
Oh, of course. All of
Yeah,
them.
and so you see that there's a mixture. You see that there's a
Sure.
mixture, but uh, something that I needed at that time was really important to me, and that was something that was inspired by a mixture of Napoleon Hill and, believe it or not, the Quran. But the quote that my father would always say to me is, "All things lost can be regained, and man like God can say be, and it is." And I remember sitting on a park in Fort Greene in Brooklyn, and I just I remember how low I was at that moment. But remembering what my father spoke into me as a young kid, it was the very thing that lifted me up. And what it tells us is that we need that inspiration. We need that cultivation of our inspiration. We need to find something within ourselves that can change our minds and turn our hearts around. And what seems to happen then is that manifestation seems to come through that. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't long after that I found myself working in a cafe. As a matter of fact, it was the cafe that was across the street from where I was sitting in Fort Greene Park.
Wow.
And then there was a young lady in that cafe that had she discovered that I was homeless, but there was a guy that was moving out of her room in her brownstone and wanted to know if I wanted to rent a room. And I had money to do that, and I did, and that was the beginning of getting off the street. And then eventually, to make a long story short, I got back on my feet. I got back to acting again, and life continued to unfold. And so that's sort of the background. And as far as overcoming the depression part, well, the beginning of it, to be honest, was AA,
Mm-hmm.
the 12 Steps of Alcoholic Anonymous, and getting sober. And my sponsor told me a long time ago that it only gets better from here. And it
Yeah.
only got better. It only got better. And then I discovered that, let me say this one last thing. I discovered when I was on the street, back, now I'm going to age myself. Back in those days, this was before you can go into Starbucks or Barnes and Nobles and pick up a book and sit down and read it while you drink coffee before you buy it.
Right. Right.
You couldn't do that in those days. You know what I mean? So I would sneak into bookstores and I would read inspirational material. And what I discovered was, I discovered that throughout my life that it's necessary to find ways to cultivate the inspiration that's within me, to continue to cultivate that inspiration. And eventually you find that in life it's not that the glass is half empty, but that it really is half full. And that if you think on your problems will grow. But if you think on the solutions will grow. And
Yeah.
that was the beginning of me coming out of a life filled with lows, depression, to a life mainly filled with highs.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's powerful stuff. Okay, so you mentioned AA, and yeah, for a lot of people, I know that is the foundation for starting again, and it's something to anchor yourself to, and it's a community of people give you a lot of support and can help you turn yourself around. So, is there anything other than AA that you think gave you or gives you even today that sort of inspiration to keep going whenever you feel like you're having those moments of self-doubt? Is there something that you can sort of recall quickly and help you
Yeah.
change your thinking?
Yeah. I believe it's the idea. I mean, the law of attraction, but going deeper than the law of attraction is really understanding that the me that I am is not my body, that I live within my body. And the I that I am is that which I need to get in touch with, um, because there's unlimited resources of not just dreams coming true, but unlimited resources of serenity, of peace, of joy, of hope, that it all lies within. Especially in a time like this, right?
Yeah,
Where
absolutely.
you have so much coming from you from all different angles. You can't turn on the news for 30 seconds without it being negative, right? Then you got media spread out through all the social media, right? Then you have people that in your life that probably are not feeding you or putting something into you or putting negative things into you, right? And then, of course, the most important is what we do to ourselves, the negative self talk we give to ourselves, the
Right.
criticism that we give to ourselves. So for me, it's the ability to gaining the ability through the course of time or on how to go to tap into who I am within myself, and the unlimited resources there that gives me a tremendous amount of joy, and power, my
Yeah,
higher power.
that is powerful. It's really powerful stuff. And you mentioned something I think a lot of artists also struggle with, which is this feeling of self-doubt and not good enough. And, there's constantly a battle, that goes on to, wanting to better yourself and better your art. And for some people it's a drive, but for others it can be kind of debilitating as well. And it can lead down some very dark places.
Yeah, I completely relate to that and understand that we are. Speaking in terms of being an actor, but I'm sure it relates to all artists. Is you're in the spotlight all the time, and you're under the scope of criticism all the time. You got the director, you got other actors, you got the reviews, you got and it can be really daunting to have so much coming at you that you lose a sense of faith within yourself. And so I would say the thing that I would want to offer to the artists that are out there is that there is no one like you. There will never ever be another you on the planet.
Right.
And that because of that, you are special enough. And everything that you are is a gift to us. And what you have to offer as an actor and whatever characters you bring, or a director, whatever your vision is, or your writer, whatever content you develop, you're bringing something that no one else can bring because it's coming from you. And that our purpose here is to develop that part of who we are, or who we are, and to get in touch with the things that you can do to improve yourself, to help you gain confidence within yourself, to express that, because we need it. You're a gift to us, is what I would say. And remember that you're a gift to us. That's on the philosophical and spiritual side, which truly is the foundation. On the practical side, I'd say this: practice, work at it, rehearse. Repetition is magical. Repetition is magical. And the more you do, the better you will get, and more opportunities will open up for you. With the auditions, it's like what I learned in the sales world, which is some will, some won't. Who cares? Next.
Mhm.
And
Right
so
on.
just keep going. Just keep going. And so that's what I would offer.
That's powerful stuff. So let me ask you, in 2020, did you find yourself having a lot of your clientele, people that you coach, did you find a lot of people were struggling with this?
Yeah, well, I tell you, and I was affected tremendously too. I don't know if you've seen, there's a movie out with Tom Hanks called Greyhound that came
Hmm.
out on Apple. Well, I was a part of helping produce that through Sycamore Pictures. So I'm not a producer on Greyhound, but I freelance with a film company called Sycamore Pictures, and I've raised money for the special effects.
Wow. Okay.
Was one of the people to raise money for the special effects. So it was the first big movie that we're anticipating coming to the box office, and I think it had the trailer had over 7, 6 million views, something like that. I was celebrating. The investor that I had come on board was celebrating. Was just having a meeting with a guy by the name of Craig Brewer, who directed Hustle and Flow, Dolomite, several other movies, and we were going to partner up on some things. Really excited. And then Craig said something that I wasn't paying attention to. He was like, "Well, everything's going to work out as long as this Corona thing doesn't come, into the country or mess everything up." And I was thinking, "Oh, it'll be all right." Well,
Right.
that night it came out that Tom Hanks had COVID.
Oh, wow.
Then it was announced that we were, I think, was a state of emergency. My wife called me and said, "Go to the grocery store right now. Go." Because everything's going to get shut down. And that's the only thing I was thinking about is getting as much groceries as I could. I got 3 kids.
Yeah.
And everything at that point was about survival. And so for a while, it was just about what do we do? How do we protect ourselves? How do we stay alive? What's going to happen? It was just questions. And so as things got a little bit clearer, people started calling me wondering what did I think, what to do. And as things began to move on and went virtual, people were really nervous about Zoom and how to work it, how to understand it, and then I had this idea that a lot of people don't understand how to be engaging. I was already on Zoom, so a lot of people didn't understand how to be engaging, and a lot of my clients were trying to figure out how to keep their teams motivated, how to keep people inspired, because you had two things going on. You had the virtual world, and then you had the fact that people were afraid and nervous and depressed and, didn't know how to handle this new world. And so that led me to being engaging on Zoom. But through the course of time, within the way that I coach, I would say it's also life coaching is a part of that. And so for a while, as I was coaching clients online, there was also this element of life coaching, which was as good for me as it was for them, because it inspires me to inspire others. And then eventually, as things went along, we started doing in-person socially distancing, and so my life has been very hybrid, offline and online. But that's basically how things kind of unfolded during that period of time. Does that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. So where do you think people are at now? If you had to gauge by your clients and people that you coach, and it's a year has gone by. A lot of people have kind of adjusted their lives. They've become accustomed to things. They've changed jobs. A lot of people are feeling a lot more optimistic now because a vaccine is available. What's your pulse?
For myself, I've never been busier. I've met people that are doing really, really well during this period of time. I think as we pivoted, we begin to find ways to do that. I also know people that are struggling, and people that are kind of in between. And I think what all of us are sensing is that this world is not going to go away, even though the world will continue to open. But I think the virtual world is creating other opportunities. And so, like for me, where I would normally have to travel, even though I'm traveling now, but I would normally have to travel. I've been doing a lot of Zoom and pre-recorded performing, which has been going really, really well. I think people are still nervous and a little scared about the unknown. It's still an unknown about so much. but I do think that the vaccine has helped ease some anxieties. And I think that understanding that there's opportunity in two worlds now, the virtual world as well as the open world, I think it's created more, in my circles anyway, more hope than anxiety.
Yeah.
Is what I've been experiencing. But, you know, I'm personally still sensitive to people that haven't figured it out yet and are still, you know, under the cloud of a rapidly, you know, changing world. So that's still there.
Right. You know, I know you're driving. I don't want you to, you know, be in a situation where you're unsafe and you're on the highway. There is so much more I still want to talk to you about. Maybe we can do another call soon and we can talk about your other projects.
Sure, that's no problem. Mind you, I'm in the passenger seat. But.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
I was a little bit worried about that, but okay, cool.
Yes, I'm looking at you like this and I'm driving. That's dangerous.
Right.
No, I'm in the passenger seat.
Okay. Right on. Okay. Well, why don't we do that? Why don't you tell me a little bit about projects you're working on, what's upcoming, and then let's see if we can schedule another call, because we didn't even get to talk about your film, which I really do want to talk about. But go ahead and tell me what's upcoming for you.
Sure. Well, right now I'm in the process of rehearsing, developing, and I'm getting funding for a new one-person show called My Words Are My Sword. And it basically is a one-person show dealing with the social, political, racial earthquake that we've been experiencing. And through spoken word poetry and through various characters that I've created and through music. So I'm really excited about that. It'll be under an orchestra, or over an orchestra rather. So there'll be orchestration behind it. That's my biggest project that I'm working on right now. And then my first film, I won't be directing it, but I am writing and producing it since 100 Live, a film called 12th Step,
right,
which is a comedy. I'm working on, we'll probably I'm anticipating going into production in the fall. So those are the two biggest projects I'm working on right now. Yeah.
Okay. Exciting stuff. Do you have any public appearances or any live stream appearances coming up in the next month you want to plug?
No public appearances right now. No live stream, but I am going to DC probably in March. They're still deciding on a date. And, you know, I do the life story of Frederick Douglass. And so we're doing a short film of his life in his house in Washington, D.C. And once that video is done, then I'll announce when we'll do a stream of that. So.
Okay, awesome. So go ahead and give us your website and your social media accounts, and how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. They can get in touch with me through www.solospire.com. That's SOLOSPIRE.com. And then they can look me up on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Phil Darius Wallace. They can find me that way.
Okay, awesome. Darius,
okay.
It was really great to talk with you. I'm glad we were able to make this time and you were able to do this from the backseat of the car. That's the coolest Zoom call I think I've ever been on. And,
cool. All right.
But yeah, let's do this again soon. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I think there's a lot more we can delve into. So you take care, have a great trip, and be safe.
Thank you. You be safe too. I really enjoyed your show. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.